Guess it's back. All right. So thank you so much, Benefactor and David, for that conversation. Lots and lots to take in. And guess what? That's something to look forward to for us. And remember, our premiere is April 14th. Hey guys, welcome back. This is our third live check-in at the GalaChain Hackathon. Sorry about that. Little jumble there. It's been a long day. So you guys, before we do anything else, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. All right. Don't forget to join our Discord. It is in our description box below. So make sure you join the conversation with us. All right. So we've got some amazing live content for those on the ground here at the Hackathon. And I'm really sorry to tell you guys, but I am super late for something super special, but I gotta run. You'll hear all about it later. So, listen.
I think that one of the things I always describe film marketing, for example, it's like you'll have a great property, but if you have marketing, it's like a Bugatti with no gas in the tank, And so Razer as an idea in my head, got some gas in the tank fueled by Gala, right?
Here's what I will take. I'll accept credit for one thing.
Okay.
I remember a conversation you and I had where I said to you, I am comfortable with your creative vision, however punchy you want to make it, however intense you want to make it.
Yeah, yeah.
You do you do what you feel like is the right thing. I remember saying that to you.
I do.
And I kind of braced myself. I looked at the script and I was like, oh shit, shit, what's this gonna be like? And then I saw some of the episodes and I'm like, okay, he did it. He did what he said he was gonna do.
Yeah, and it's funny because for the most part, especially season 1, new relationship and how far can I go? And I wanted to always represent Gala in the best possible light. And so I think that, I went like a soft R with Razer. I think that now that we're kind of in this ecosystem and we're feeling each other out, I think season 2, provided there is a season 2, could be a hard R.
Oh, come on. Provided there's a season 2, there's a season 2.
Yeah. No, I think I'd like the world to get darker. I like it to get grimier. I like it to get grittier, more violent, because that's the world. That's a reflection of the world that we live in, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. The dystopian nature of Razer is inspired by things that are happening now. But the central character, Grimm, he's an idealist. And he really believes that humankind deserves better. And Grimm, in the story of Razer, as I said, is an idealist, and he's a combat veteran that has come back from, a nuclear war. And Eastern Europe is essentially an ashtray at this point. And so because he's been pushed to the brink of absolute desperation, he's come to terms with the fact that we have to do better for humanity. Even illustrated in the story, he has trouble holding a firearm. His hands tremble when he holds a firearm, even though he's a multi-tour combat veteran. And
well, especially because he is. Right?
Exactly. And when he implants the acumen, this artificial intelligence this BCI technology into his cerebrum that allows him to access data all over the world and trigger it instantaneously, he can either become infinitely dangerous, or he can, pay attention to his own moral compass and try to be the lesser of evils amongst a den of thieves. And so to your point, I think that there's a certain amount of ignorance that we have to live in order to accept the violence around us, right? And trying to still be a beacon of light even in the darkness. And that's what Grimm is trying to do. And he believes that this technology can save man. And one of the biggest questions that we ask ourselves in Razer is artificial intelligence dangerous? Or is it the human being that wields it dangerous? In other words, if this degree of BCI technology were installed in the Pope, it would probably do certain things. But installed in the mind of Vladimir Putin, it would do very different things, right?
Yeah.
And so these are some of the questions that we have to ask ourselves that, especially once AI becomes sentient, right?
Well, just imagine, getting something implanted in your brain that was feeding you false narratives too. What would that be like?
Yeah.
What if your AI had a bias that was manipulated by a corporation?
Yeah.
and it was implanted in your head.
Yeah, and those are narrative tropes that, and keep in mind when we're, even with a show like Razor where it's a short form series, what I do love about science fiction is that science fiction allows us to go into a world, create an illusion around a certain technology or certain cultural tropes, and we accept the rules that world sort of creates. And within the short form context of the show, we sort of stick to a certain amount of rules. That once this device is implanted into Grimm's brain, it gives him the ability to access information, but we assume that his brain is fast enough that it could dissect what he wants and what he doesn't want.
And that he has control over.
And that he has control over, which is why in the show he breaks out into seizures and he almost dies.
What's fascinating to think about too is like, he's obviously the developer of this technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're face to face with this kind of realization too, is that we're consumers of free technology all the time, mm-hmm. right? Where the narrative of consumption is reversed in a sense, where we become the product. Mm. We become the product of Facebook, or we become the product of Google.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, because we don't own any of that stuff.
Right. They own our activity. They own our consciousness as it's mediated through their technology. Right.
Yeah.
So what happens when we get a free implant? Right. Who controls it?
That's a very good question. I think that it's probably.
I think that'd be kind of fun for you to explore.
Yeah, and there's some interesting stuff that we're exploring in season 2. And so thinking of those rules, like there's 2 rules that are very important in the world of Razor. Is that at least for season 1, he can receive data, but he can't transmit it, right? Because then at that point, at what point does it become a Marvel show, mm-hmm. right? When Grimm can look up at the sky and take down a 747, right? It's at that point, it's kind of ridiculous, right? And the other thing is that he is trapped in the limitations of his own physical body. So if he can receive information on how to do 40 judo throws, for example, he would still be trapped in the physical limitations of his own flexibility. Unlike Neo in the Matrix, when he's in the Matrix, he can leap from building to building, but when he's in the Nebuchadnezzar, mm-hmm. he's a human being.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that I wanted to do in the world of Razor, is to keep it existentialist and keep it very grounded. That this is a guy who's not a superhero. He's an everyday man that just happened to create a technology that gives him an edge. And accessing data and information is obviously one of the most powerful things. I mean, AWS, for example.
Yeah.
It's like whoever controls the data is king.
Well, I think what I really kind of like about my sort of experience of your show is this feeling of assuming control or assuming like agency over technology, as opposed to being a passive consumer of it or being a passive recipient of the product of technology. Mm-hmm. What was so kind of gritty for me was kind of witnessing the Nikolai Tesla of the modern era tinkering with reality in a sense, or tinkering with what it might mean to take the next leap, and then being having an agency over it.
Yeah.
Right. And the consequences of that, and
it's very Frankensteinian in some ways.
Yeah, right? Yeah, absolutely.
There's one of the things that I want to really expand on is the notion of like the grid zone, right? The grid zone is a fictitious area of Los Angeles. But when I was conceptualizing it, I thought to myself, I was like, how do you keep drug wars at bay, right? It's always a turf war. Yo, you're on my block. Yo, get the fuck off my block, right? So in this area of the grid zone, Grimm creates this sort of like metaversal overlay over a physical city. And everybody is connected to that metaversal technology through the mobile devices. So a blood is going to know when a Crip crosses the street, even if he can't see it, because he gets a notification on his mobile device, and vice versa. Mm. And so as a result of that grid zone, it controls turf wars. The other thing that it does is that when they sell bags of dope, a bag of coke or a bag of crack or whatever that is, it's done completely on a blockchain. But immediately that transaction goes through a tornado siphon. And so it goes in one way, but then exits to multiple SIG wallets, so nobody can track it.
Which is fun. I'm glad you said that, because it seems like the dumbest thing on the planet for a criminal to do is to put their criminal activity on a permanent
on chain, right? But the idea is that Grimm creates this technology because ideally, he said, by doing this, I get to control turf wars, right? And everything runs on nodes. And as a result of the nodes and a result of the network, the drug dealers are protected from each other from a turf perspective, but now they can sell all their dope illicitly, because the peeps, who are the cops, they peep into the data and they can't track it.
God forbid Grimm ever goes evil and decides to use all of this to his personal advantage.
Right. I mean, you never know what the will of man wills.
Yeah, you never know what the arc of this character will be.
You never know. You never know. You talked about the grittiness of the story. Like, first off, let me just say this, that like, I am blessed that Gala gave me the provenance to create the world that I envisioned in my head. You know, it's Children of Men. It's Blade Runner 20.
I love Children of Men. That was such a good movie.
One of the greatest films ever made.
I think, I mean, it's close. One of the closest times I'm like, I almost cried. I'm like, I can't believe that is like.
Yeah, when I think of movies that inspired Razor, it's Prisoner, it's Children of Men, it's Blade Runner.
The original?
The original and 2049.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, both.
I like
and
that.
some of the texture is like Cyberpunk 2077 and like the techware and things like that. But when you watched it, I mean, was it what you expected? I don't know. Or did you not have an expectation?
Interesting. Well, I did not have an expectation. So but it does kind of like raise an interesting question. Like, what was...
Or was it better or worse than you thought it was going to be?
It was definitely, yeah. So that's funny. I'll say this.
Be honest. There's only cameras
I
coming.
really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like I didn't expect it to be like Queen of the South or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Fuck that. I mean, I'm on Queen of the South, but it's like Queen of the South is melodramatic.
So like that would be like okay,
Yeah.
But like I went into it. I braced myself a little bit because I said, I know we had this conversation where I said, just do it is your artistic vision. And then I read the script and I was like, oof, okay, let's see how that goes. And then, so I was like, this could be gnarly. This could be kind of intense. And it was intense. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. And for that, I felt grateful. So
good.
I felt grateful that you were skilled. I felt grateful that you were visionary. That's what I felt. I felt like this was something that was kind of unexpectedly well crafted and something that was more polished than I thought possible. So,
well, that means a lot. I mean, you've got some pretty sharp eyes, so that means a lot. I remember going into this and saying to the team, I was like, look, if this isn't good enough for Netflix, it's not good enough for me. And
what isn't good enough for Netflix, though?
Right. At this point, I mean, they are kind of a smorgasbord. But I wanted to deliver something from a technical perspective that was at least going to meet or exceed studio expectations, period. Because if you can't do that, what the fuck are we doing, right? We get one shot to win people over and to create a first impression. And, I take the Gala brand incredibly seriously, and I take my own brand incredibly seriously.
Here's one thing I did wish was a little bit different, though. So between the moment when we said, go ahead and do this, and when you finished, we learned some things in Web3 film, right? And we've talked about this, right? And you actually took that learning and kind of went with it. So the primary thing is, I think with the technology that we have today, and particularly the way we're thinking about Web3 film, narrative design, I think, is going to see a radical change. So like you have just for everyone else, you have that, you start at point A and you go to point Z, right? This one kind of linear experience, and you get the payoff at point Z, right?
Right.
But what you've designed now, with the learnings that we've all been kind of developing over the last few years, is a more web-like narrative design, where you can start going down pathways that you tease along the main narrative, but your payoff on those sort of sub narratives, I guess you could say, happens, through the mystery boxes. I don't know if that's what we're going to call them or what, but that's something to me that I think, like, I see it all the time. Like I just watched the Witchboard movie. So it's we should.
How do you feel about that?
That's good. I want you to see it. We'll see what you think.
I'm excited.
But there was one character who shows up, and I'm like, wow, that guy has got a lot of charisma. There's a lot of like this. I want to know more about this particular character. Right. But in a normal narrative design, I'll never that interest will never be satisfied.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and And so I'm thinking about like the linear nature of Razor and quadratic narrative. So each episode has its own sort of four corners that lives around the base narrative, right? Yeah. And so if you take that base narrative from the epicenter of, so 3-act structure, 1, 2, 3, here's the center, I've got a cube around it, I've got at least 4 other corners in which the narrative could stretch. And so I've got story points that tap each side of that quadrant, and that happens for every single episode. And so when we were writing the stuff for the mystery boxes, or as we're calling it now, that's the context in which I was thinking. And I remember you gave me sort of permission. We were talking, and you're like, we should be thinking about this, how Marvel thinks about their IP.
Just for 1 second.
Yeah.
I didn't give you permission. I just didn't impose a restriction.
Better said.
You always have the permission to do whatever the fuck you want to do. It's just whether someone else is going to try to impose their will upon you.
Yeah.
Right? And I just choose not to do that because it's not my right. Yeah. This is your creative vision.
And that's better. And thank you for that. And that's better said. And I'll tell you this: Razor is what it is because you didn't fucking do that. Like, I rewrote the script 7 times during fucking production, not because I wanted to. It's just because of the nature of the world. Like, restrictions on budget, time, energy, resources. Like, we just got to tell the story. We got to make it happen. If I had to answer to Big Brother every time I had to make a narrative change, we would have never finished.
Well, that's what we're seeing now. We watch these shows, and that's what we're getting. We're getting the perverted and diluted and like distorted vision most of the time. And then every once in a while, we'll get somebody's brilliant artistic expression, and we're just blown away by the authenticity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and what the big movie studio execs don't understand is that, in order to justify their job, their meddling is creating their own failure, their own justification, their own feelings of inadequacy and insecurity is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's really interesting, because we do bring, our opinions are all completely informed by our personal experiences. And you bring suits, as we call them in Hollywood, into an artistic box, and they see things through a suit contact lens. And that's really, really restrictive. And, Razor, again, is what it is because we were able to move like a cigarette boat. If I had to make a decision, an executive decision happened between me and my immediate production team, I didn't have to call executives to ask for permission. And so we were able to skid. We weren't the Titanic. And as a result of that, we were able to be nimble, and we were able to make fast decisions and execute in the way that we did at a high level, shooting 7.5 pages a day.
If Web3 isn't about unlocking a new golden age in creativity, what is it? Right. Is it just a bunch of like Roy boys trying to make money?
That's like this is. I always say, like, look, if it's not great content, what the fuck are we doing? Yeah. And if we're not decentralizing, not just like on chain, but decentralizing in the creative process, in the development process, what are we doing?
Right. We're just repeating the past.
That's right.
Let's do something different.
And the other thing that's cool about, that's really important is, like, as far as the powers that be are concerned, Hollywood, right? Unless we create exceptional content every single time, those guys are going to look at us and be like, see, I told you, they're just some cute Web3 kids having fun in their little fucking sandbox. But if we like knock the leather off the ball, they're going to be like, whoa, those Gala guys are up to something. Like, they really know what they're doing. That's what we want. Because then they're going to come to our table, and we don't have to go looking for them.
But to be clear, though, I think I think I shared this with you, but the reason I started Gala had nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. The reason I started Gala is I remember hearing a story about, this can bring it all the way back to the beginning of the conversation. Mm-hmm. I remember hearing a story about when we all decided that the Nike sweatshops in Cambodia, I think it was, needed to be shut down. Right, because it was exploiting children in this terrible way, and so we shut them down, right? And so now all those kids are out of a job. They were making $1 a day. Now they no longer have that $1 a day. I remember reading a story, and I don't know if it's real or not. It could have been fake news. I obviously don't live in Cambodia, so I don't know if it was real. But it really hit me as like, what shit? If that was true, that's meaningful. What I heard was, those kids ended up in brothels. Mm. So for $1 a day, a kid goes from a pretty awful experience to an even more awful experience. Mm. And so I remember looking at my kids and being like, these kids spend $1 a day and they don't even know they're spending $1 a day. They have no consciousness. There's that $1 on the floor in their bedroom. Mm-hmm. They don't even care about it. So, but what if a kid in Cambodia could trade a digital item of some kind with a kid in the United States in an easy kind of way? What if that value could be transferred from the United States to Cambodia, and that kid could, make enough money playing a video game or doing whatever, so they avoided that fate, right?
Excuse me.
Bless you. So that was the original, like, wait a second, so how do you do that? And then the blockchain kind of started happening, like, oh, that's how you do it. You move it on the blockchain.
Yeah, I remember when I first entered the NFT space in 2021, a company called MetaPurse, which is Metacoven, who bought the $69 million Beeple. He bought my Genesis NFT, which is a spoken word film called I Can't Breathe, which is my soliloquy to George Floyd. And some deep conversations that I had with Metacoven was that his desire to enter crypto art was exactly that, to help level the financial table in third world countries that were suffering, but supported in a way that was art driven, that would inspire, motivate, uplift, enlight, and solve the problems that you're just discussing.
If you ever asked me this question, which is, what are the things in business I'm the most proud of? I would say the answer for me is, through the Gala project, we have distributed $2.2 billion to hundreds of thousands of people around the world. We've distributed more money than we have earned by a lot. I don't think any other company in the existence of time has ever done anything quite like that. And
the Gala token is traded more heavily in foreign territories than it is in the United States.
Well, that's intentional.
Right.
It's very confusing, and the rules in the U.S. So we just stayed away from that. But like most corporations say they give 1% of profits, right? We gave away many times our revenue. No one's done that before. I don't think. I might be wrong. I don't think it's ever happened.
Do you have an example of like maybe one moment in your life where you're like, wow? So you had the moment where you heard about the Nike sweatshop in Cambodia and how that made you feel. Has there been a moment where you've seen, witnessed, experienced tangible results of the work that you've done with Gala that touched you in the same way?
I mean, the Galaverses, there have been many moments actually in person where people would come up and say, my life has been completely changed by this. I would say that happened a few times. Yeah, for the Gala project. But I also, one of the things that I love the most actually is talking to guys like you, where you keep telling me, oh, because of Gala, I was able to do this thing, right? And that I find a lot of like appreciation in that, even though I don't take any credit for your creativity. It's really nice. It's gratifying and satisfying to know that you had something. We were able to provide something, some support to you or some benefit.
Yeah, I think if I had to just dilute that down, is Gala has provided the resources in the container, all right, to be able to execute at whatever level of my creativity could. But then at that point, I had to execute because the world is full of people that get money that can't execute for shit.
It's true.
I mean, Hollywood's full of them. Tech is full of them. Of people that just don't know how to use a dollar and make it look good.
It's funny. My daughter recently came up to me and she said she wanted to start a business, right? And so her first question was, "Oh, should I go raise all this money? Right? Should I go can I talk to the people Dad? To raise money?" And I said, "No, you can't. You can't do that. I'm not going to do that. It's like, here's what you need to do first. You need to show me that you can execute before I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
Like if you can't actually go out and build the thing that you say you want to build, even a small version of it, even like a wireframe, or even just something, some expression of what your vision is. What is money going to do?
That's right.
But make that even a larger failure.
Yeah,
right?
Rich dad, poor dad.
Yeah. So show me you got it, and then I'll support you.
Yeah, and I tell a lot of young filmmakers and a lot of actors and whatnot, I say, look, movies aren't made with money. Movies are made with inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Because high art follows inspiration. If you look at some of the greatest architectural marvels of our time, the money follows an inspired architect that the money believes can deliver, period.
Right.
Because if you don't have an inspired leader, the money isn't going to follow.
Yeah.
I need to believe, if I'm your financier, I need to believe that you're going to deliver. It needs to be so infectious that I know that you believe it to your innermost self, down to like a molecular code in your system that you're going to deliver. That's when the money shows up.
Yeah.
Because that's what the money's looking for.
Guess it's back. All right. So thank you so much, Benefactor and David, for that conversation. Lots and lots to take in. And guess what? That's something to look forward to for us. And remember, our premiere is April 14th. All right. Then make sure you guys show them some love by hitting the like and subscribe button. All right. And it's been a long, long day, you guys. So that's it for the updates for today. And we will see you again in a few hours. It's going to be a long day, but we'll see you there.